So, before I dive into what happened, let me give you some background. I'm a 17-year-old girl living with my 43-year-old mother, stepdad, and 2 step-siblings. I have a stepbrother, Jackson, who's a year older, and a younger stepsister, Emma, who's 2 years younger. We all attend the same high school, but we're not close and don't share any friends. My mother married their father after dating for nearly 5 years, and although their wedding was 3 years ago, we've been living together as a family for 6 years now. My own father passed away when I was very young, so I don't remember much about him. They weren't married, and his family didn't approve of my mother back then due to her reputation. Unfortunately, he was diagnosed with leukemia at 27, and by the time it was discovered, it was too late. He set up an education fund for me before he passed, which his lawyer managed until I turned 18. After my father's death, it was just my mother and me for a while until my stepdad entered the picture when I was around 8 years old. We all moved in together, as my mother had moved away from our old town where she and my dad had met, finding it too painful to stay. I never got to meet my paternal grandparents, as they weren't interested. My maternal grandparents are kind, but we're not very close. Moving in with my stepdad and his children gave me hope for a bigger, happier family, but reality fell short. While they never made me feel unwelcome or mistreated, our dynamic always felt off. Despite living together, we never bonded like a real family. I tried to connect, but their enthusiasm was lacking, so I eventually stopped trying. We coexisted more like roommates than a family, and I've come to accept that reality without romanticizing it. My mother was treated differently by them. They welcomed her as part of the family. I felt excluded, like they were playing happy family with her, but not with me. I might be wrong, but I think it had to do with my stepdad's ex-wife, who was a nightmare. I've never met her, but she was a gold digger who left him nearly penniless. He had to rebuild his life and take care of my step-siblings after she abandoned them. Meeting someone like my mother, who was the opposite of his ex, must have been a relief for them. But I felt like an afterthought. I can't point to specific examples, but the vibes were always there. Despite being part of the family, I never felt like I belonged. I told myself I was overthinking, but the feeling persisted. I was jealous that my mother had found her place while I was still on the outside. Over the years, I started to resent them because I felt left behind. I never brought it up because it seemed petty. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. That's just how life was. I wasn't okay with it, but I was content. Now, a couple of days ago, I started looking for colleges since I'm graduating soon and need to start sending out applications. I wasn't worried about money because my mom had always told me there was a fund set aside for me. But a few days ago, she said she needed to talk. My stepfather hadn't saved money for his kids' college, so she wanted me to share my college fund with my step-siblings. Jackson had taken a gap year and was starting college the same time as me. Legally, my mom couldn't control the funds. My father's will stated that I had control over the money once I turned 18. Honestly, I didn't want to share. I didn't see my step-siblings as family, and I wanted to use the money for myself. It could help me get a head start, like getting my own apartment, until I started earning. I had already saved a lot since I went to public school, and I was a good student hoping for a scholarship. I told my mom I wouldn't share the funds. If Jackson wanted to go to college, he could get a student loan like millions of other kids. My mom called me selfish, and I didn't disagree. I was being selfish, and I thought it was fine because I didn't consider my step-siblings family. That's when she started screaming at me. She couldn't believe I didn't think of them as family. The double standards were crazy. They had treated me like an outsider for years, but I was supposed to see them as family. I tried to stay calm, but she kept yelling, calling me ungrateful. I waited for her to finish and told her that screaming wouldn't change my mind. It would just push me further away. My mom calmed down a bit, and I hoped we could have a rational discussion. But I forgot that in that household my feelings didn't matter. Only their happiness did. After she calmed down, she gave me a week to decide. If I didn't agree, she said she'd have to kick me out of the house. I thought she was joking. It seemed ridiculous, but she wasn't. My birthday was less than a month away, and soon she wouldn't be legally obliged to let me live there since I wouldn't be a minor anymore. If I didn't agree to share the college fund my father had set aside just for me with my step-siblings, I'd be out on my own. I could hardly believe my own mother would put me in such a difficult position for the sake of my step-siblings when I was her flesh and blood. She told me to think it over carefully because this decision could cost me everything, then she left the room. I sat there, trying to process what she said. It was incredibly insulting to be treated that way by my own mother. That day, I decided I was going to get out of this house, no matter what. I started talking to my friends, telling them I needed help finding an apartment because I planned to move out by my 18th birthday. I explained everything my mother had said and the urgency of the situation. I knew that once I turned 18, I'd get all the money and control how I spent it. Yes, I'd have to budget carefully and choose my degree and college wisely, but it was worth it. I'd finally be able to move out and live on my own instead of putting up with my family or forcing them to tolerate me. After that conversation with my mother, it was clearer than ever that I wasn't welcome in that house. I really had been an afterthought all these years. A couple of days passed, and a friend told me she had spoken to her cousin, who was applying to the same college as I was. We had an interest in the same field, so it seemed like a good lead. I wanted to live in an apartment to be independent from the start. My friend suggested I connect with her cousin, who was also planning to live in an apartment, so we could share one if we ended up at the same college. It seemed like a great idea, so I reached out to her cousin right away. We discussed everything, and I shared my situation with her. She was very understanding, and I could tell we'd get along well. With that sorted out, my next concern was where to live until college started, which was still a few months away. Luckily, my friends offered to let me stay with them until then. It was a bit of a messy and risky plan, but anything was better than living with my mom and her family after our big fight. They were treating me horribly, not by being outright mean or abusive, but by completely ostracizing me. They would give me dirty looks, stop talking whenever I entered a room, and act like I was the most disgusting person alive. It was humiliating and made me want to run away. I decided that as soon as my friends were ready to take me in, I would leave. When my mom finally spoke to me again, asking if I had changed my mind, I told her the truth. I said I hadn't changed my mind and that I was leaving. I told her the way she and her family had treated me was psychotic, and I couldn't take it anymore. I'd also let her know that I had already arranged to stay with a couple of friends. When my mom told me to leave, I was ready. I planned to stay with friends until college started. I told her I never wanted to see her again, so kicking me out didn't faze me. When she started yelling and calling me selfish and ungrateful, I left without hesitation, but I wasn't done with my plan. During my time alone in my room, I thought about how to get back at her. Since marrying my stepfather, my mom's life changed for the better, but mine didn't. She didn't seem to care about my struggles because she was happy with her new family. I tried to be supportive, but it was clear she prioritized her stepkids over me. Her treatment made me feel awful, and I was determined to make sure she faced consequences. Once I left, I decided to expose her. I waited a week before going online to ensure she couldn't reach me. I posted about how she screamed at me for not contributing to my step-siblings' college fund, even though they never treated me like family. My mom only had a problem with my behavior when it mirrored theirs. I highlighted her double standards and how she forgot about me after remarrying. I called her the most selfish person I knew for demanding I share the money my father left me. I would have considered it if my step-siblings were ever kind to me, but they weren't. I vented all my frustration in that post, knowing it would impact my mom since many of my followers were my father's friends and their kids. At that moment, I didn't care. She'd been my only source of support and happiness, and choosing her new family over me felt like the ultimate betrayal. I was deeply hurt, so I posted without thinking about the consequences. As expected, it spread widely, and my mother was devastated. She's well known, so gossip spread fast. She tried to contact me, but I avoided her calls and texts. Her messages made me feel worse, saying she never expected this from me, that I was unkind and not like she raised me. She even invoked my late father, saying he'd be disappointed. I felt awful, questioning my actions. Now I'm unsure if refusing to share my college fund was right or if I should reconcile with my mother. I feel manipulated and need guidance. Am I wrong here? Update. Thank you for the supportive messages. They helped me see clearly. I almost forgave my mother, hoping she wasn't so bad, but her hurtful words showed her true nature. I've blocked her to avoid manipulation and won't remove my post until she apologizes. She knows where to find me, but I'm staying with friends for now. So she knows where to reach me. Despite knowing if she doesn't, I'll take it as a sign she doesn't care about me and cares more about her own reputation. Update 2. It's been 2 weeks since I moved in with my friend, leaving my stepfather's house. Since that post, I've had zero contact with my family. I went to school a couple of days and ran into Emily a few times. She shot me a nasty look and acted like I wasn't there, which isn't surprising. They've been pretending I don't exist for 8 years. Anyway, my mother finally visited last evening. She arrived with a black trash bag, dumping all my leftover stuff in the living room. It felt insulting, using a trash bag to pack my things, and even more insulting, dumping it on the floor for me to gather. My friend and her parents witnessed it all, scandalized. They didn't appreciate my mother's behavior one bit and argued with her about it. They told her, as my only daughter, she should show more compassion instead of treating me so poorly. They scolded her, but she didn't take it well, accusing them of harboring a delinquent like me. I almost laughed because I'm far from a delinquent. I'm a scholar. My friend stood up for me, thanking her parents were nothing like mine. It turned into a bit of a fight before my mother left in a huff. I'm grateful for my friend and her parents. They didn't need to stand up for me, but they did. It's the first time someone has fought for me, and it meant a lot. I doubt my mother will return soon after yesterday's welcome. I hope she doesn't. I'm tired of the drama. I want to move on and start anew, but I can't if she keeps showing up. I pray this is the last time that I have come across her. Last updated you. I've been pretty MIA lately, about a couple of months, I think. But it's not without reason. I've been busy applying to colleges and aiming for that scholarship. All that hard work paid off. I got into my top choice school. And remember that plan I mentioned a while back? Well, it's all falling into place. My friend's cousin, who was also applying to colleges, got accepted here too. We've decided to rent an apartment together. She's awesome, and being my friend's cousin is just a bonus. It means I can stay connected with everyone. Emotionally, it's been tough these last few months, but my friends really helped me through it all. I'm so thankful to have them. They're like family to me now. Despite trying to avoid relying on friends for emotional support before, I realize now how much they mean to me. Seriously, I couldn't have come this far without everyone's support, including all of you who reached out with such kind messages. It's funny how strangers on the internet sometimes provide more support than my own mother, who hasn't even bothered to text me since I moved out. But that's all behind me now. I'm focused on a fresh start here and excited for